Hey everybody, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1, as always. Hope you're having a good week. I've had a good one, getting to relax a bit and not have to worry so much about, I guess you could call them pressing matters, outside matters. Still looking for full-time employment, but the part-time gig is working out cool. Fun little job, just not getting enough hours. But, I do have some things in the works, a couple of upcoming interviews, so maybe that will turn into something, and that's always a good thing. We'll have those possibilities out there. I have actually had some time this week to do, well, let's call it personal reading. So I've knocked out a couple of books that, well, I've been meaning to get to. I read a lot, so I tend to have this pile of books or multiple piles of books, things that I've been meaning to get to. I want to read and just have to kind of get myself in the right mindset to read certain books and, have the time and things like that. So I was able to get a couple of those knocked out. And at least one of those will be a future show because I think it's kind of timely and pertinent to some of the stuff that's going on, and it's a good book anyway. But in the meantime, we have kind of had a slow news week outside of sort of the normal Trump cycle, which is to say, Trump does something and the mainstream media, progressives, they just lose their shit over it and drag him through the news and so on and so forth, rinse and repeat. So I'm not going to delve too deeply into that, other than one item that I will mention before we get to the main focus of the program. So use this item to kind of clearly demonstrate to your normie friends who maybe have been riding the fence about all of the things that you've told them about in the past. They keep thinking you're just exaggerating or you're just being overly dramatic, and they kind of roll their eyes at you when you bring these topics up and things. And so, nope. Now you have definitive proof that you can bring out and show them these responses and show them what the mainstream talking heads said about this particular situation and prove this beyond a shadow of doubt. And I'm talking about the faux outrage that has been thrown up and rolled out in response to 50 South African nationals who've been accepted into the U.S. under refugee status. The blithering nonsense spewed forth by these talking zombies about all of this is evidence that it's all the evidence that you need to clear up any doubt that the left intends to wipe out white people from the face of the earth, or at least as many as possible. They've come out in absolute unity on their talking points and their rhetoric about this small group of people, these 50 people, families, white South Africans who are fleeing real danger, real oppression. Their government and political parties in their country have gone on record to say that they have a policy of stealing the property of white people. And the political parties are openly calling for the murder of white South Africans. So follow this here. White South Africans have their own distinct culture and language. Now, of course, it's derivative of European culture, English and Dutch. But it's a distinct culture. It evolved into a distinct language, a distinct culture. By definition, calling for the removal of these people from South Africa by any means necessary, that is textbook genocide. There have been trials in international courts involving leaders and government officials from other countries, all kinds of countries, on charges of human rights violations, war crimes, genocide, all of these things for doing just that. Bosnia and Serbia come to mind most prominently, most recently. No one is calling these South African politicians to the carpet for making these statements. are taking these actions or putting these policies into place. You've seen this come out from J.D. Vance, a couple of Elon Musk. They're the first real mainstream celebrity types who have said something about what has been going on for a very long time in South Africa against the white farmers there. White South Africans have been in South Africa since the middle 1600s. It's almost 400 years. When they arrived in that area, there were no people living there. It was not occupied and stolen from, peaceful black tribes. It was empty. There was nobody there. There were smaller black tribes that arrived in the area later, after whites had gotten there and settled. They came in because the Zulu tribe was carrying out an expansion campaign, and they went to war with those tribes and drove them out off of their land and pushed them into where the whites had settled. So these modern descendants of those native South Africaners are fleeing genocide. And they arrive here in the U.S., real refugees. They're not South Americans looking to get free government benefits. They're real refugees, and they're met with open hostility from the immigrant industry. The Episcopal Church refuses to settle these people, to be involved in that. The mainstream media, the Trump haters, they all roll out this opposition. They made it very clear. The left has finally found immigrants that they do not like and support. Just go watch some of the media talking heads and what they have to say. The next time your normie friends look a little uncomfortable when you tell them that the left hates white people, pull these clips out and play it for them. Now, enough of that for now. We can come back to that in another episode, because I'm sure that's not a problem that's going away. For now, I want to move on to the main gist of the show. The other day, there was an exchange on Gab that I want to address a little bit. And I'm not going to get into the particulars about who said what, or identify specific commenters or individuals. I just want to present the two sides of the debate and give you kind of my perspective on it, because I think it's kind of an interesting discussion. Essentially, side A offered up the idea that it was not brave to refuse to take the jab back at the height of all that. And side B disagreed and said it was indeed bravery due to the social consequences that could occur for some if they refused. And side A countered that it was fear of the jab itself, and that meant that side B were cowards, although they conceded that the cowards were in fact correct ultimately in the end. But they said, well, it's not bravery, you were just afraid of taking the jab. Now, this to me was a terribly stupid position. So I just avoided the conversation entirely to kind of keep from just arguing with a brick wall. It didn't seem very... It was one of those internet type conversations where it's not productive to engage, but it is a thought-provoking idea. And I thought it made good content to kind of examine the discussion here. So here we are. Now, I, for one, do not go around calling myself brave for not taking the jab. I don't regret the decision at all. I just, I've never woken up in the morning or saw a video or read an article and thought to myself, man, I wish I would have just taken that shot. And I've never thought that. It was just never something I was going to do. And I put my foot down for my family as well, and I told them, no, none of you are getting that. And I don't care what happens, even if we all lose our job and we end up living in our cars. We're not taking that. I mean, I don't think of that as bravery, mostly because I was lucky enough to never really be put in a position that I had to make a choice anyway, even though I had already resolved myself and made up my mind that it was just not going to happen. I never was confronted with, hey, you either choose this or choose that. It just didn't come up. And I count myself lucky for that, but that's how I was going to do it. And I know people who were put in that position. Some of them caved in and they took it. Some of them did not. I've always said that I thought, it's a personal decision, and I've made it clear that I think that making people choose between their jobs, which really means life. Let's get real here. If you have no money coming in and just basic living is extremely difficult. Making them choose between life or a medication is not a choice at all. That's coercion. Anyone who suggests that someone facing that decision in a position that they're being coerced, that someone who chooses the hard path is somehow a coward, just too afraid of the easy choice, that's mind-blowingly stupid. If you walk through this door, it's going to be hell on earth. You'll be faced with an unrelenting social and legal pressure. You will likely lose your job, your home, maybe your family, or you can take this shot that is a complete unknown that might cause you long-term suffering. Or worse. For anyone to think taking the shot in that dilemma, given that choice, given those set of circumstances, that's the easy choice, and therefore the other choice is somehow the choice of the coward, I can't wrap my head around that kind of thinking. I think that's somebody coping with their decision, justifying their position. Now, there's that old saying that there's a thin line between bravery and stupidity, and it's totally true. Bravery is knowing the choice is going to lead to negative consequences, or could lead to negative consequences, and choosing to do it anyway. And stupidity is doing it because you're unaware or dismissive of the consequences. I offer that choosing to take the jab was stupid per that definition. You had no idea of the consequences, or you were dismissive of them. And so you made that choice. I think those who were really faced with the decision, like the guys I know who were shit-canned from the Army because they said, no, I will not take this. People who lost their jobs, who were given that choice at their place of work. Facing all these negative downstream repercussions for not doing it and deciding that they were not going to do it. That's bravery. That's brave as hell. What are you talking about? And like I said, I never had to face the choice or put my beliefs to the test, regardless of what I had decided beforehand. It just never presented itself. So I don't think I made a brave decision, but I did make the right decision. But those people who faced into the face of that sheer weight of social and economic pressure and said, nah, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, that's brave. What do you guys think about it? I'd be interested to hear in the comments what's your take on that. We all have to live with the consequences of our decisions, good and bad. I'm glad I made the choice that I made. I hope you guys made the right choice and you're happy with that choice. And I'm sad for the people that made a different choice. At least in my perspective, they made the wrong one. They did what they thought that they had to do. I don't begrudge them for that. I don't look at them as being foolish or dumb or anything like that. I mean, just because I said, well, that was the stupid choice, doesn't mean that I judge people based off of that. You did what you thought you had to do. But I'm glad I made the decision that I made. Anyway, like I said, I'd be curious to hear what you guys' take on that would be, and so put that stuff down in the comments. But anyway, that is all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab. Nice crew in the mothership at the Cold Fury blog, and I will see you on the next episode.